Your hands are stained red and you've just discovered something that will change humanity forever. Hello, my friends. I'm so glad you're here tonight because we're about to take a gentle journey through one of the most beautiful stories in human history. We're going to explore how different cultures slowly learn to see, name, and understand the colors that paint our world. How simple pigments turned into meaning, memory, and magic. If this slightly meandering reflection helps you unwind after a long day, feel free to follow along, drop a like, and tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I love knowing that we're sharing this quiet moment together wherever you are in the world. Now settle in. Draw a little closer to whatever warmth you have near you. Dim your lights if you can. Maybe turn on a fan for some gentle white noise. Let the day fade away. Tonight we're traveling through 40,000 years of human wonder, and we're going to take our time. Before we begin, picture this: a time before synthetic dyes, before science could explain why the sky turns pink at sunset or why some flowers are purple and others yellow. A time when the only colors available were the ones you could dig from the earth, crush from stones, or coax from plants and insects through patience and experimentation. Every color had to be earned. Every shade was a discovery. And here's something that might surprise you. Ancient Greeks had no word for blue. Homer never once described the sea as blue in all of the Odyssey. The sky was bronze. The sea was wine dark, not because they couldn't see blue, but because their language hadn't taught them to notice it as a separate color. What does that mean? It means color isn't just what we see, it's what we've learned to see, and every culture learned differently. This is a story about chemistry and cave paintings, about emperors and insects, about an accidental discovery in a Victorian laboratory that dressed the world in purple. It's about Egyptian artisans who created the first synthetic color, medieval monks grinding stones worth more than gold, and modern neuroscientists discovering that we literally see what our language teaches us to see. It's about the 40,000-year-old conversation between humans and beauty. We'll meet a pigment maker in ancient Egypt whose hands stayed blue for 23 years. We'll stand beside a Chinese indigo farmer teaching her daughters the craft that kept her family alive. We'll witness a 19-year-old chemist in London accidentally create a color that changed fashion forever. We'll follow a neuroscientist and her colorblind daughter as they discover that different ways of seeing can be equally beautiful. But most of all, we'll discover that color is never just color, it's memory. It's meaning. It's the way we've always tried to share what we see with each other, to say, look at this, isn't it beautiful? And hope that someone else understands. So take a deep breath, let your shoulders drop. We're beginning in a cave 40,000 years ago, where someone just discovered that the world's colors don't have to stay where they are. They can be moved, captured, made permanent, and everything is about to change. Outside, the world is locked in ice. Mammoths trudge through snow that never fully melts. The summer barely comes, and when it does, it's brief and precious. But here, deep in this limestone cave, you've made a fire that pushes back the darkness and the cold. And in your hand, you're holding something remarkable. It's a rock, rusty red, heavy for its size, with a texture that feels both rough and smooth at once. You found it 3 days ago by the river, after the rain had washed away soil from the bank and exposed a seam of this strange colored stone. You've seen this red before, of course, in blood, in the sunset, in the clay that sticks to your feet after storms. But this is different. This red belongs to you now. You rub the stone against the cave wall and it leaves a mark. A streak of colour that catches the firelight and seems almost alive, glowing warm against the grey limestone. You make another mark, and another. The motion is satisfying in a way you can't quite explain. Something inside you wants to make these marks, wants to put colour where there was no colour before. The rock is iron oxide, mixed with clay and sand, though those words mean nothing to you yet. What you know is that some deposits make better marks than others. The really good stuff comes from places where water has seeped through iron-rich stone for thousands of years, leaving behind this concentrated rust. You've learned to recognize the spots where the earth bleeds this particular shade of red. Sometimes you have to dig for it. Sometimes you trade for it with the people from the valley on the other side of the ridge who know different sources and different colors. You've given them 3 rabbit pelts for a pouch of especially fine red powder, ground so smooth it feels like water between your fingers. Chemistry without a name for it. Understanding without words. You grind the ochre against another stone, reducing it to powder. Mix it with animal fat from last night's meal. The consistency matters, though you're still figuring out why. Too thick and it clumps, refusing to spread smoothly. Too thin and it runs down the wall before you can shape it into anything meaningful. Trial and error, careful observation of what works and what doesn't. The fat helps it stick, makes it last. You can smell it as you work that animal scent, mixing with the mineral smell of the stone and the smoke from the fire. You've also discovered that burnt bones make black. Charcoal from the fire makes a different kind of black, softer, easier to use. You grind the charcoal fine and mix it with fat. Now you have 2 colors to work with, red and black. Later, someone will discover that certain types of clay produce yellow. That manganese dioxide gives you another black, deeper and richer than charcoal. That mixing white chalk with other pigments can lighten them. But for now, red and black are your palette. Red and black are enough. You begin to paint animals on the walls, the creatures you hunt. The bison with their heavy heads and powerful shoulders. The horses that run faster than any human can follow. The deer that feed your family through the long winters. You paint them in profile the way you see them when you're tracking, when you're watching from downwind, trying to stay invisible. The red makes them look alive. When the firelight moves, they seem to move too, muscles rippling, heads turning. The black gives them form and shadow, makes them stand out from the stone. Depth and dimension emerging from instinct rather than instruction. Why are you doing this? Maybe it's magic. Maybe painting the animals on the wall will make them appear when you hunt tomorrow. Maybe capturing their image gives you power over them, makes them willing to sacrifice themselves for your survival. Maybe it's memory. Maybe you're recording the great hunt from 2 moons ago when your group took down a bison that fed everyone for a week. Maybe you're teaching the young ones what these animals look like, how they stand, how they move. Maybe you just like the way it looks when firelight dances across the painted surface. Maybe the act of creation itself is enough, the satisfaction of bringing color and form into existence where there was only blank stone before. What you haven't realized yet this moment is the beginning. Color can be captured, controlled, transformed. The world's hues aren't fixed in place. They can be moved, mixed, made permanent. This knowledge will spread, not quickly. There are no books, no schools, no organized teaching. But others will see what you've done and they'll try it themselves. Other caves will fill with painted animals. Other hands will grind ochre and mix it with fat. The techniques will improve slowly and organically. People will learn to blow pigment through hollow bones to create fine sprays of color like mist. They'll develop stenciling methods, pressing their hands against the wall and spraying color around them, leaving negative space in the shape of human touch. They'll master the art of shading and depth-creating images that seem to emerge from the rock itself, three-dimensional and breathing. But it all starts here, with you rubbing red rock against stone and watching color bloom in the darkness. The funny thing about these early pigments is how limited they are and how much people do with them anyway. Blue doesn't exist yet in human hands. That's centuries away, millennia away. Green is barely possible and highly unstable, fading quickly back to yellow or brown. Purple is completely beyond reach, so rare in nature that it doesn't even occur to you to want it. But you don't miss what you've never seen created. The palette of earth tones feels complete because it's all you know. Red, black, yellow, white, brown. These are the colors of the ground beneath your feet, the fire that keeps you warm, the animals that sustain you. These are the colors of survival and life. The seasons turn, children grow, some people die, others are born. And through it all, the paintings continue. Generations add their marks to the walls. Some paintings overlay others, creating palimpsests of image and meaning. The canvas lives and breathes, constantly refreshed and renewed. The oldest images fade into the rock, their pigments absorbed by the limestone or worn away by touching hands. New ones shine bright with fresh color, still sticky with fat, still smelling of effort and intention. No one thinks about preservation or permanence. These aren't museum pieces or treasures. They're just what your people do, as natural as hunting or gathering or sitting around the fire telling stories. Painting because humans paint. It's becoming part of what it means to be human. One evening you're working on a new horse when a child from your group comes and sits beside you. She watches silent, her eyes following the movement of your hand. You dip your finger in the red paste and let her try. She makes a small mark, tentative, then smiles when she sees the color appear. You show her how to mix the ochre with fat, how to test the consistency on a scrap of hide before applying it to the wall, how to use charcoal for outline and ochre for filling. She's learning. The knowledge is passing to a new generation. And in this moment, in this small act of teaching, something even more important than painting is happening. Culture is being created. The idea that some knowledge is worth preserving, worth sharing, worth carrying forward. The horse on the wall will fade eventually. Even stone doesn't last forever. But the idea of the horse, the technique of capturing it in color, the desire to make the invisible visible, and the temporary permanent that will endure. 40,000 years from now, people will be painting in caves made of concrete and steel, using pigments created in laboratories, staring at screens that glow with light instead of reflecting it. But they'll still be doing what you're doing right now. Still trying to capture color, to share what they see, to make something beautiful out of the raw materials the world provides. You finish the horse as the fire burns down to embers. The cave grows darker. The painted animals seem to retreat into the stone, waiting for tomorrow's light to bring them back to life. You're tired, your fingers are stained red, you smell of smoke and fat and stone dust. But you're satisfied. You've added color to the world today. You've made something that wasn't there before. And tomorrow or next moon or next year, you'll do it again. And not because you have to, because you want to, because this is what humans do. You are Kenti, and your hands have been the color of sky for 23 years. It's permanent now, this staining. The blue settles into the creases of your palms, under your fingernails, in the whorls of your fingerprints. When you wash in the Nile at dawn, the water turns faintly azure around your wrists before the current carries it away downstream toward the sea you've never seen. Your father's hands were blue. Your grandfather's before him. This is the trade you were born into, the knowledge passed down like a precious inheritance. How to make the color that doesn't exist in nature. How to create blue. The workshop is in the artisan quarter of Thebes, a low building with thick mud brick walls to keep out the heat. The year is approximately 2,500 years before the birth of a prophet your distant descendants will follow, though you know nothing of that. You know only the rhythm of your work, the cycles of the Nile, the dynasties of pharaohs, whose tombs you help decorate with the most sacred of colors. This morning the workshop smells of minerals and heat. Your apprentice, a young man named Panhesi, is grinding limestone with a stone pestle, reducing it to powder so fine it feels like silk. He's been with you for 3 years now, and he's finally understanding that patience isn't just virtue, it's technique. Not too fast, you tell him. Let the stone do the work. Force it, and you'll make dust that's too coarse. He slows his rhythm, and you nod approval. Making Egyptian blue what future generations will call the first synthetic pigment in human history is complex work. The recipe has been perfected over generations, refined through countless failures you never saw. You begin with limestone, which is everywhere in Egypt. The pyramids are made of it, the temples, the tombs. It's the stone beneath your feet, the foundation of everything. You take the ground, limestone, and mix it with sand from the desert. Not river sand, which has impurities, but clean quartz sand that glitters white in sunlight. Then comes the copper compound. This is the expensive part, the rare ingredient. You use malachite ground to powder, or sometimes azurite, both copper carbonates that give you the element you need, and natron, the natural salt that forms in dried-up lake beds, the same substance used to preserve the bodies of the dead. The proportions must be exact. Too much copper and you get green instead of blue. Too little and you get nothing at all, just a dull grey-brown that's useless. You've measured these ingredients so many times you can do it by feel now, but Panhesi still needs to weigh everything carefully using stone weights calibrated against grain measures. He mixes the powders in a large clay bowl, combining them thoroughly. The mixture looks like dirty sand, pale brown with specks of green. Nothing beautiful, nothing promising, that comes later. The kiln is already hot. You've been feeding it fuel since before dawn, dried dung and scraps of wood, maintaining a temperature that must be precise. Around 800 degrees, measured not by numbers but by experience. The color of the flames, the way the air shimmers above the opening, the heat that radiates from the bricks. Panhesi pours the mixture into clay crucibles, shallow dishes that can withstand the heat. You place them carefully into the kiln using long wooden tools, positioning them where the temperature is most even. Now we wait, you say. The waiting is the hardest part. The mixture must stay at this temperature for hours. Too soon and the transformation won't complete. Too long and you'll destroy what you're creating. While you wait, you grind pigments for other work. Red ochre, always in demand. Yellow orpiment, beautiful as concentrated sunlight but poisonous as a snake. You're careful not to breathe the dust. You've seen other pigment makers die young, their lungs filled with arsenic. Black from carbon, pure and fine. White from gypsum, soft and chalky. Green from powdered malachite, though it's never as stable as you'd like. Green fades. Green changes. Only blue remains true. After many hours, when the shadows have grown long and Panhesi is yawning from the heat and the waiting, you open the kiln. Inside the crucibles, something miraculous has happened. Small crystals have formed deep blue and glittering. They catch the late afternoon light streaming through the workshop door and seem to glow from within. Calcium, copper, silicate, though those words won't exist for thousands of years. You know only that you've taken common materials and transformed them into something precious. You let the crucibles cool slowly. Rush this part and they'll crack, and all your work will be lost. When they're finally cool enough to touch you, pour the crystals onto a grinding stone. This is the most satisfying part, hearing them clink against the stone, seeing that pure, deep blue in your hands. It's the color of lapis lazuli, that impossibly expensive stone that comes from the mountains of Afghanistan, thousands of miles away across deserts and mountains and kingdoms you'll never see. Merchants sometimes bring lapis to Egypt, and it costs more than gold. A piece the size of your thumb might trade for enough grain to feed your family for a month. Only the wealthiest nobles can afford it, and even they use it sparingly, grinding tiny amounts for special purposes. But you've made blue from limestone and sand and copper, materials that are relatively common, relatively affordable. You've created the color of the sky, the color of the Nile, during the flood season, the color of heaven itself. You grind the crystals carefully, reducing them to powder, fine enough to mix with binding medium, egg white usually, or gum from acacia trees. The consistency must be perfect. Too thick and it will crack as it dries on the plastered wall. Too thin and the color will look washed out, pale, barely blue at all. Your hands know the right texture without thinking. Thousands of times, maybe tens of thousands. The muscle memory goes deep beyond consciousness. Panhesi watches as you test the paint on a piece of broken pottery. The color is stunning, rich and vibrant, stable and true. Millennia from now, when your name is forgotten and your workshop is dust, this color will still shine from tomb walls. Tomorrow you tell Panhesi we deliver this to the tomb of Lady Neferura. Lady Neferura was the daughter of a powerful official dead, now 3 months from a fever that the priests couldn't cure. Her father has commissioned a tomb worthy of her memory, with painted scenes of the afterlife, gardens and banquets, the deceased surrounded by abundance and joy. And blue, especially blue, because blue is sacred. In Egypt, colors are language, colors are theology. Blue is the color of the heavens, the realm of the gods. It's the color of the Nile when it floods, bringing life to the desert. It represents fertility, birth, rebirth. It's the color of creation itself, the primordial waters from which all things emerged. Green symbolizes growth and regeneration, the shoots of wheat pushing up through black mud after the flood recedes. Red can mean life and victory, the color of the sun at dawn, but also chaos and destruction, the color of the desert that surrounds the narrow strip of habitable land along the river. Yellow is eternal and unchanging, like the sun that crosses the sky every day, like gold that never tarnishes. White represents purity and sacredness, the color of linen and milk and the full moon. Black is the color of fertile Nile mud, the source of all life in this desert land. Black is not death here, it's possibility richness, the soil from which everything grows. The tomb is cut into rock outside the city in the necropolis, where thousands of the dead sleep in their stone houses. You arrive at dawn with Panhesi and another assistant carrying your pigments in sealed jars, your brushes, your tools. The tomb painter, an older man named Amenhotep, has already laid out the design in red ochre outlines. Your job is to fill in the colors following his specifications exactly. The main scene shows Lady Neferura in the afterlife seated in a garden. There are trees heavy with fruit, pools of water reflecting the skybirds in flight. Servants bring her offerings, musicians play. Paradise frozen in pigment and plaster. Amenhotep points to the sky. Blue, he says, pure blue, the finest you have. You nod. You've brought your best batch ground, fine as flour mixed fresh this morning. You begin at the top of the wall, working methodically. The brush is made from reeds bound together and trimmed to a point. You dip it in the blue paint and apply it in thin, even strokes. The color goes on dark, almost purple, then lightens slightly as it dries. Each brush stroke matters. This is permanent. This will last thousands of years if you do your job properly. Panhesi works beside you on the lower register, painting the blue-green water of the pool. He's using a mixture of blue and green, creating the color of Nile water under sunlight. His strokes are less confident than yours, but they're improving. The work is meditative. Hours pass. The tomb stays cool despite the heat outside, the thick rock protecting you from the sun. You paint and you think about Lady Neferura, whom you never met. You think about her father, who's paying a fortune for this tomb, this promise of eternal life. Your own eventual death could come tomorrow or in 30 years. No one knows. Will someone paint your tomb? Probably not. You're not wealthy or important. You're just a craftsman, a maker of pigments. But maybe your immortality is in every blue sky you've created, every heaven you've painted. Living forever in your work, anonymous but present. By late afternoon, the sky is complete. You step back and examine it critically. The color is even, no streaks, no thin spots. The blue seems to glow in the lamplight, luminous and perfect. Amenhotep comes to inspect. He studies it in silence for a long moment, then nods. Good, he says. Very good. This is the color of heaven. You feel a flush of pride. Amenhotep is not generous with praise. You pack up your tools as the sun sets outside. Panhazi chatters about the work, excited by the day's accomplishment. You listen with half your attention, tired but satisfied. Walking home through the streets of Thebes, you think about blue. How strange that this color, so rare in nature, almost non-existent, except in sky and water and a few precious stones, has become the most sacred color in your culture. Flowers are rarely blue, animals are rarely blue, the desert is brown and gold, the river is brown with silt most of the year. Even the sky isn't always blue. At sunrise and sunset, it's red and orange and purple. But blue is precious exactly because it's rare, because it requires effort and knowledge and skill to create, because it can't be taken for granted. You arrive home as stars begin to appear. Your wife has saved you dinner bread and beer and onions. Your children are already asleep. You wash your hands in a basin of water, watching it turn blue, then sit down to eat. Your wife looks at your hands. You've been making blue, she observes. Always blue, you reply. She smiles. She's been married to you for 15 years. She knows the rhythm of your work, the cycle of creation and delivery. Lady Neferura's tomb, she asks. You nod. Did it turn out well? The best I've ever made you say. And it's not arrogance. It's simply true. Today's blue was perfect. She touches your stained hands gently. You give them heaven, she says. That's important work. You hadn't thought of it that way exactly. But she's right. You make the afterlife visible. You create eternity in pigment and plaster. Later, lying on your sleeping mat, you think about the cave painters from thousands of years earlier. The ones who first discovered that color could be captured, moved, made permanent. They worked with red and black, the colors of earth and fire. You work with blue, the color of sky and water and gods. Different materials, same impulse, taking the invisible and making it visible. The dynasties will fall, the temples will crumble, the Nile will change its course. But the blue you made today will remain speaking silently to people thousands of years in the future. You close your eyes. Your hands are still blue. Tomorrow you'll dream in colors that don't exist yet. You are Alexios, and you're arguing with your teacher about the sea. It's late afternoon in Athens, and the autumn light slants through the columns of the Stoa where you study. You're 18 years old, training to be a poet, and you've just noticed something strange. Something that's going to bother you for the rest of your life. The wine-dark sea, you say, reading from the scroll of Homer's Odyssey. Why does he call it wine-dark? Your teacher, an old man named Socrates, not the famous one, different Socrates who teaches rhetoric to rich men's sons, looks up from his own reading, because that's what it looks like, he says. Have you been to the coast? Yes, you say. Many times. And the sea is not dark like wine. It's You trail off frustrated. What color is the sea? You can picture it perfectly in your mind, the Mediterranean on a clear day, stretching to the horizon, but you can't name the color. It's not green, though sometimes it has green in it. It's not gray, though on cloudy days it appears gray. It's something else, something you don't have a word for. Blue, you finally say, using a word that barely exists in Greek. The sea is blue. Socrates raises an eyebrow. Blue, that's not a proper color word. Blue is vague. Do you mean dark like the sky at twilight? Or light like... He can't think of a comparison either. Never mind blue, he says, dismissively. Homer calls it wine dark because wine is precious and the sea is precious. It's metaphor, boy. Poetry. Don't be so literal. But you can't let it go. You return to your small room and pull out your copies of Homer, both the Iliad and the Odyssey. You read through them carefully, noting every description of color. The sea is wine dark. Sometimes it's described as violet. Once it's compared to iron. But it's never called blue. In fact, as you read deeper, the sky is never called blue either. The sky is bronze like a shield. The sky is iron. The sky is the color of dark clouds or bright sun, but never blue. You expand your search. You read Hesiod, Sappho, Pindar, all the poets whose works you've studied. You find references to the glowing sky, the brilliant sky, the wide sky. But never blue. The word exists, sort of. Glaukos can mean blue, but it also means green, grey, pale, light-coloured. It's used to describe eyes, the sea, fresh-cut, wood-pale faces. It's not specific. It doesn't pin down the colour you're thinking of. You lie awake that night, staring through the window at the night sky. There are no clouds. The moon hasn't risen yet. The darkness above is punctuated by stars. But between the stars, what colour is that darkness? It's just the colour of night sky. But is it different from the colour of a dark robe? A shadow? Charcoal? The more you think about colour, the less certain you become about anything. The next day, you approach Socrates again. Teacher, you say, do we see colours the same way our ancestors did? He looks annoyed. You've interrupted his lecture on proper dactylic hexameter. What kind of question is that? Homer doesn't mention blue. None of the ancient poets do. Did they not see it, or did they not think it was important enough to name Socrates considers this? He's a better teacher than his impatience suggests. An interesting question, he admits. Perhaps they saw the world in terms of brightness and darkness more than color. Light and shadow, that's what matters for survival after all, whether something is light or dark, near or far. But we can see blue, you press. I can see it, you can see it. Why couldn't they name it? Perhaps Socrates says slowly, we see what we have words for. Or perhaps we develop words for what we need to see. The sea is wine dark because wine is important to us. We understand wine. We don't need a specific word for the color of the sea. We need metaphors that connect it to our lives. You think about this for days, weeks. It becomes an obsession. You start paying attention to how people around you describe colors. Your mother talks about fabric she's weaving. She describes it as bright or dull, rich or pale. She talks about red, like blood yellow, like honey white, like milk black, like night. But when you ask her about the color of the sky, she says, it's sky-colored. What else would it be? People don't think about color the way you're thinking about it. They don't categorize it into distinct bands of hue. They think about it in terms of function, comparison, brightness. The obsession follows you into adulthood. You become a moderately successful poet, not famous, but respected. You write verses about Athens, about love, about war and peace, and the eternal questions of existence. But you never quite solve the mystery of the missing blue. Centuries pass, trade routes expand, knowledge travels. The Roman Empire rises, absorbing Greek culture, transforming it, spreading it across 3 continents. Now you are someone else. Your name is Marcus Livius, and you're standing in a warehouse in Rome that smells like death. It's the year 100 of the Common Era, and you're a merchant who's built a fortune on a single color purple, Tyrian purple, royal purple, the color of emperors and the wealthiest senators, the most expensive substance on earth, weight for weight, more valuable than gold, and it's made from rotting sea snails. The warehouse holds thousands of murex shells piled in heaps. Your workers are outside in the processing yard, and the smell coming from there is indescribable. Rotting shellfish left in the sun for days, fermenting in vats, releasing a stench so powerful that purple dye works are required by law to be located outside city limits. You've grown used to the smell? Mostly. Your grandfather was a dye worker. He died at 42, his lungs destroyed by the fumes. Your father was smarter. He became a middleman, buying from the dye workers and selling to the wealthy. He died at 60, comfortable but not rich. You've taken it further. You own the whole operation now. The boats that catch the snails, the workshop where they're processed, the relationships with the cloth merchants. You've built an empire on this hideous smell. The process is brutal. First, you need to catch the murex snails. They live in deep water, so you need skilled divers or special traps. One snail produces a tiny drop of mucus from a gland near its head. That's it. One drop. It takes 12,000 snails to produce 1.5 grams of pure dye, enough to color the trim on a single toga. Your workers crush the shells, extract the glands, and ferment them in vats with salt water. The mucus is yellowish-white at first, but when exposed to sunlight and air, it transforms. First to yellow-green, then to blue-green, and finally to the rich, deep purple that emperors will pay anything to possess. The chemistry is complex, though those terms mean nothing yet. You just know what works. The temperature of the fermentation, the amount of time, the way sunlight affects the color. All empirical knowledge passed down and refined through generations. You're inspecting a new batch today. Your foreman, a Greek slave named Philippos, shows you the test cloth. The purple is perfect, deep and rich, with that slight red undertone that distinguishes Tyrian purple from cheaper imitations. Excellent, you say. This will fetch top price. Philippos nods. He's been with you for 15 years. You've promised to free him when he's 40, and you'll keep that promise. He's too valuable to lose. Senator Cassius has requested enough for a new toga. Philippos tells you, full purple, not just trim. You whistle. A fully purple toga will require enormous amounts of dye. The cost will be staggering. Can he afford it, you ask? He says the emperor has given permission for him to wear full purple at the triumph next month. He'll pay whatever it costs. You calculate quickly. The emperor's permission is political theater. Cassius is being honored, elevated. He'll want to make a statement. Money is no object. Tell him 60,000 sesterces, you say. Philippos doesn't blink. He's used to these numbers. He'll pay it. Of course he will. Purple is power. Purple is status. If the emperor says you can wear it, you wear it no matter the cost. You walk through the warehouse, running your hands over stacks of purple-dyed wool. The color is hypnotic. It seems to glow from within, rich and deep, and absolutely distinctive. No other dye looks like this. People have tried to imitate it with combinations of cheaper dyes, red and blue mixed, but it never quite works. Tyrian purple is unique, and that uniqueness is what makes you wealthy. The Romans have better color vocabulary than the Greeks did. You have specific words for different shades of red, different types of blue, caeruleus for dark blue, caesius for light blue, though both words can also mean grey or green depending on context. Latin is more precise than Greek about color, but it's still organized strangely. Romans think about color in terms of saturation and brightness more than hue. A bright red and a pale red might have completely different names, while bright red and bright purple might be grouped together because they're both intense colors. You've never thought deeply about this. Color is just commerce to you. But sometimes, late at night, you wonder what your grandfather thought about as he stood over the vats, breathing toxic fumes. Did he think it was beautiful, or did he just think it was poison that happened to be profitable? You're wealthy now. You own a villa outside Rome with gardens and fountains and marble floors. You have slaves to dress, you cook for, you entertain you. Your children will never have to stand over a vat of rotting snails, all because of color. Because someone thousands of years ago discovered that these particular snails produced this particular shade, and someone else decided that shade was worth dying for. Literally, purple laws restrict who can wear which shades. The deepest Tyrian purple is reserved for the emperor alone. Lesser purples can be worn by senators with permission. Wearing unauthorized purple can get you executed for treason. Color is hierarchy. Color is law. Color is power made visible. You think about the Greek poet you read once, the one who wondered why Homer never called the sea blue. You dismissed it as philosophical nonsense at the time. But now, standing in your warehouse full of purple, you wonder, do we see colors or do we see status? Do we see hues or do we see meaning? Is purple really different from red, or have we just decided it is because we needed a color that signified power? What you know is that tomorrow Senator Cassius will receive his purple toga. He'll wear it to the triumph, and everyone will know that the emperor favors him, that he's important, that he matters. All because of color extracted from 12,000 rotting snails. You leave the warehouse as the sun sets. The sky's turning colors you don't have names for. Red, yes, but also shades between red and purple, between purple and dark. Beautiful colors, fleeting colors, free colors. Tomorrow you'll sell purple for the price of a small farm. But tonight the sunset belongs to everyone, and you can't help but think that maybe the sunset is more valuable than all the purple in your warehouse. Maybe Homer was wiser than you thought, calling the sea wine dark instead of trying to pin it down with precise color names. And maybe metaphor is better than measurement. Maybe some things are better left unnamed, mysterious, belonging to everyone and no one. You walk home under a sky that's every color and no color, and for once you don't think about profit. You just look at the beauty. Your name is Mei Lin, and the scent of indigo has lived in your hair since you were 7 years old. Not just your hands, though, yes, they're permanently stained that deep, slightly greenish blue, but also your hair, your clothes, even your dreams sometimes smell of the fermentation vats. Sweet and pungent and earthy like the earth itself has been transformed into liquid. You're 41 years old now, and you've been working with indigo for 34 of those years. Your mother taught you. Her mother taught her. This knowledge goes back generations, passed from woman to woman in your family, a lineage of blue. The farm is in Fujian province, southeastern China, where the climate is perfect for Indigofera tinctoria. The plants are already waist-high and it's only late spring. By harvest time in summer, they'll be even taller, their small pink flowers giving way to seed pods. But it's the leaves you want. The leaves contain the magic. Your husband died 3 years ago. Fever sudden and brutal. You buried him in the family plot and kept working because there was no alternative. Your 2 daughters help now. Leanne, the eldest, is 16 and learning the full process. Hua, 12, mostly does harvesting and basic tasks. It's harvest day. You rise before dawn and wake your daughters. The work must be done early before the sun climbs too high. The plants are most potent in the morning, their leaves full of the compounds that will become blue. You move through the fields with practiced efficiency, cutting the plants near the base, leaving the roots intact, so they'll regrow for a second harvest in autumn. The work is meditative, the swish of your blade through stems, the smell of the fresh-cut leaves, green and slightly bitter. By midday, you've harvested enough for the first fermentation. Your daughters help you carry the bundled plants to the stone vats behind your house. These vats have been in your family for over 100 years. Your great-great-grandfather built them, and they've produced blue ever since. You fill the vats with water and submerge the fresh leaves, weighing them down with stones. Then you wait. 3 days usually for the fermentation to begin. The waiting teaches patience, teaches trust in processes you can't see. You know it's ready when the smell changes. The fresh, green scent becomes pungent, almost rotten. The water turns yellowish-green. The leaves have released their indigo and bacteria in the water have begun transforming it. On the 3rd day, you remove the exhausted leaves and beat the liquid. This is the critical part. You have a wooden paddle that your grandmother carved, worn smooth by decades of use. You beat the liquid rhythmically, introducing air, watching the color change. Yellow-green at first, then darker green, then blue-green, and finally blue. The blue doesn't appear immediately. You have to keep beating, keep introducing oxygen. The chemistry is invisible but undeniable. Indoxyl in the solution reacts with air and becomes insoluble, forming tiny particles of indigo that precipitate out. It seems like magic every time, even after thousands of repetitions. The liquid was yellow, you beat it, now it's blue. Leanne helps you strain out the indigo particles. They settle at the bottom of the vat like blue mud. You collect them carefully, pressing out excess water, forming the paste into small cakes that you'll dry in the sun. These cakes are worth their weight in silver. Merchants come from hundreds of miles away to buy your indigo. Some of it will stay in China, dyeing the clothing of farmers and merchants and nobles. Some will travel the Silk Road, crossing deserts and mountains to reach Persia, Arabia, and eventually Europe. Your indigo is famous for its quality, deep color, good light fastness, minimal impurities. You've built a reputation over decades. While the cakes dry, you prepare the dye vat for actual dyeing. This is different from the fermentation vat. The dye vat must be alkaline and the indigo must be reduced, converted back into a soluble form. You use wood ash lye to make it alkaline. You add bran or sake lees to feed the bacteria that will reduce the indigo. The mixture must be kept warm around body temperature. You cover the vat with thick cloth to maintain heat. For 3 days you tend the vat, stirring occasionally, checking the temperature, whispering prayers to it. Your mother taught you the prayers. Whether they're necessary is unclear, but you've never skipped them. They're part of the process, as essential as the temperature. Intention matters, your mother always said. The vat can feel respect. On the fourth day, the vat is ready. The liquid is yellowish-green, the indigo dissolved in its reduced form. You test it with a scrap of cotton, dipping it in the vat and pulling it out. For a moment, the fabric is yellow-green. Then as it contacts air, it transforms. The color blooms from within green, giving way to blue, deeper and deeper, until it settles into that perfect indigo shade. You smile. Perfect. Lian brings the silk you're dyeing for a merchant in the capital. 12 bolts of the finest silk destined for a nobleman's family. The order is for a specific depth of color, very dark, almost black blue. This will require multiple dips. You explain the process to Lian as you work. The first dip gives you pale blue, you say, submerging the silk. See how light it is. You pull the fabric out and it transforms from yellow to pale blue as oxygen hits it. Each dip adds more color. For this order, we'll dip 12 times. It's tedious work. Dip, oxidize, rinse. Dip, oxidize, rinse. Each cycle darkens the color incrementally. After the 6th dip, the blue is rich and satisfying. After the 10th, it's approaching midnight. After the 12th dip, the silk is so dark it's almost black with just a hint of blue visible in direct sunlight. This is beautiful work, Mother Lian says quietly. You nod. It is. This particular bolt you've been saving for something special, not for sale. For Lian's wedding when the time comes. Your daughter is beautiful and skilled. She'll make a good match. Some merchant's son, perhaps, or a scholar. Someone who'll appreciate her intelligence. When she marries, she'll wear this silk. 12 dips of indigo, the color of fidelity and stability, the color of workers and farmers, but also the color of the infinite sky. In China, blue carries meanings: immortality, advancement, healing. It's also the color of common people's clothes, practical and beautiful and humble all at once. You think about color and accessibility. Indigo is difficult to produce, yes. Requiring knowledge and skill, yes. But not requiring thousands of snails or mines in far-off mountains. Indigo grows from the earth. Any farmer with the right climate and the right knowledge can produce it. That feels right to you. Color shouldn't be only for the wealthy. Decades pass. Knowledge travels along the same routes as indigo. Across the sea to Japan, where the art will be refined in different ways. Now you are someone else. Your name is Takeshi, and you are a shibori master in Kyoto, Japan. The year is approximately 1650. You were born a samurai. Low-ranking, but samurai nonetheless. You served a lord who was on the wrong side of a political dispute. When your lord fell, you lost your position. You were 30 years old, trained in warfare and honor, suddenly purposeless. You could have become a ronin, a masterless samurai, wandering and selling your sword. Many chose that path. You chose differently. You chose beauty. You apprenticed yourself to a textile master, learning shibori, resist dyeing, and izome indigo dyeing. Your fellow samurai mocked you. Manual labor was beneath your class. Working with your hands was shameful. You didn't care. You'd found something that felt like meditation, something that required precision and patience and respect for materials, something that created beauty instead of destruction. That was 20 years ago. Now at 50, you're a master yourself. Your workshop in Kyoto employs 8 apprentices, all training to learn techniques that take 7 years to truly master. You're working on a commission today. A wealthy merchant wants a silk furisode, a formal kimono decorated with cranes and cherry blossoms. The pattern will be created using shibari, intricate tie-dye resist techniques. The silk is already in front of you, pure white, expensive, flawless. You begin folding it according to the pattern you've designed. Tiny, precise folds, each one exactly placed. Then you bind the folds with thread wrapping tightly to resist the dye. This single garment will have over 3,000 individual binding points. Each one must be placed correctly, tied tightly enough to resist dye, but not so tight it damages the silk. Your apprentices watch. The youngest, a boy of 14, asks, "Master, how do you remember where each binding goes?" You don't answer immediately. You finish the binding you're working on, check the tension, adjust it slightly. "I don't remember," you finally say. "My hands remember." This is beyond thinking. It's true. After 20 years, the knowledge lives in your muscles, your intuition. You could do this in darkness and it would turn out the same. When the binding is complete, a process that takes 3 weeks, you'll dip the entire garment in indigo. The bound areas will resist the dye. When you untie them, they'll remain white, creating the pattern. But that's weeks away. For now, you tie tiny knots in silk, thousands of them, creating invisible art that will only become visible through the transformation of indigo. Your apprentices return to their own work. You continue tying, thinking about your old life as a samurai. There's more honor in this, you've decided, more discipline. Swordsmanship requires years of training, yes, but it results in destruction. This requires equal training, equal precision, equal dedication, and it results in beauty. The samurai class loves your work precisely because it embodies their values. Restraint, precision, elegant simplicity. The blue-on-white aesthetic appeals to the warrior philosophy. No unnecessary ornament, no showing off, just perfect execution. You've created furisodes for lords, hakamas for high-ranking officials. Even the shogun himself owns a garment you made, though you're too humble to advertise this. Your work will outlast you. These silks will be treasured for generations, passed down as family heirlooms. Long after your hands can no longer tie knots, these patterns will exist. You think about the Chinese woman you've never met, her never will, but you know her through her craft. Mei Lin, perhaps, or someone like her, whose indigo you use, carried by traders across the sea. Her work is in your work, connected across miles and years by blue. This is what color does. It connects, it transcends. You finish another binding and move to the next. 3,000 to go. 3 weeks of work before dyeing can even begin. Time is part of the process. Patience is part of the art. You tie another knot and another and another, and slowly, invisibly, beauty takes form. You are Brother Domenico, and you're grinding a stone that costs more than a human life. The monastery scriptorium is quiet except for the sound of your pestle against mortar. The other monks have finished their copying work for the day. It's just past Vespers, and most of the brothers are in the chapel or the refectory. You've stayed behind because this work can't be rushed, and you've learned to cherish these hours alone with your pigments. The stone is lapis lazuli, and the small chunk you're grinding came from Afghanistan 5,000 miles away. It traveled through Persian deserts, across Turkish mountains, through Venetian trading ports, and finally to this Franciscan monastery outside Florence. The journey took 2 years. The cost was approximately 50 gold florins. 50 florins could feed a family for 3 years, could buy a small farm, could ransom a nobleman from captivity. You're using it to make paint. You grind carefully, reducing the brilliant blue stone to powder finer than flour. The technique is specific. You can't rush it. Grind too aggressively and you'll generate heat that can damage the pigment. You must use a gentle circular motion, patient and meditative. The powder accumulates slowly. After an hour, you have perhaps a tablespoon. You'll need to grind for another hour to get enough for today's work. You're 63 years old. You've been a monk for 45 years, an illuminator for 43. Your eyesight is failing. You can feel it, the way fine details blur at the edges, the way you need more light than you used to. This might be your last major commission. Your hands still work, thank God, but your eyes betray you more each month. The commission is a book of hours for Lady Isabella Visconti, a widow whose son died in the Crusades 3 years ago. She wants the finest manuscript ever created, a memorial to her son and a tool for her own devotions. She's given you an unlimited budget. Make it worthy of heaven, she said. Make it worthy of my son. So here you are with lapis lazuli, worth more than gold. The stone is valuable because it's rare, yes, but also because no substitute equals it. Other blues exist. Azurite, a copper carbonate, produces a lighter blue and costs far less. Smalt made from cobalt glass is even cheaper, but neither has the depth, the intensity, the pure celestial quality of ultramarine blue made from lapis. Ultramarine, beyond the sea, named for its origin across the Mediterranean in lands so distant they might as well be mythical. When the powder is fine enough, you begin the purification process. This is complex and wasteful. The lapis lazuli stone contains impurities, calcite, pyrite, other minerals that dilute the blue. You must extract only the purest blue pigment. You mix the powder with melted beeswax, pine resin, and linseed oil, kneading it into a dough. Then you knead this dough under lye water, squeezing and working it, watching the pure blue bleed out into the water while the impurities stay bound in the wax. It takes hours, your hands ache, the lye burns your skin where you have small cuts. But gradually the water turns a magnificent deep blue, and the wax dough becomes paler grey, and exhausted, you strain the blue water through cloth, let the pigment settle, pour off the clear water, collect the blue sediment. From your original chunk of lapis 50 florins worth, you've extracted about 2 tablespoons of pure ultramarine pigment. 2 tablespoons. Enough to paint perhaps 3 manuscript pages with solid blue backgrounds, or to add blue accents to 20 pages. You understand why illuminators reserve this color for the most sacred subjects. The Virgin Mary's robes, the heavens, the most important decorative borders. You literally cannot afford to waste it. You mix the pigment with egg white and a drop of water, creating paint. The consistency must be perfect. Too thick and it won't flow from your brush. Too thin and the color will be weak. Your hands know the right texture. After 43 years, they know. You light another candle. The light is important. You need to see the colors accurately. The vellum page before you is already prepared with underdrawings in silver point, a scene showing the Annunciation, the moment the angel Gabriel told Mary she would bear Christ. Mary's robes will be ultramarine. The angel's wings will be gold leaf with ultramarine details. The sky behind them will be deep, pure, costly blue. You dip your finest brush, made from squirrel hair, bound to a quill shaft, into the paint. You steady your hand against a maul stick to prevent trembling. At 63, with failing eyes, you can't afford shaky hands, too. The first stroke goes down perfectly. The blue is stunning. Deeper than sky, richer than sapphire. This is the color of heaven itself, the color of divine grace made visible. You work slowly, filling in Mary's robe with careful, even strokes. Each brush stroke is a prayer. Each application of this impossibly expensive pigment is an act of devotion. The other monks don't understand this, not really. Brother Paolo, who copies texts but doesn't illuminate once, asked you why you waste so much time and money on decoration. The words are what matter, he said. The prayers and psalms. Why spend 50 florins on blue paint? You tried to explain. This isn't decoration, this is theology made visible. This is prayer you can touch, see, keep forever. When someone opens this book of hours and sees Mary clothed in heavenly blue, they're not just seeing pretty pictures, they're experiencing the sacred, they're glimpsing eternity. Color has moral weight in your world. It's not aesthetic choice, it's spiritual truth. Blue is divine, heavenly pure, the color of Mary, Mother of God, the color of the sky that separates earth from heaven, the color of truth and faithfulness. Gold is the light of God, uncreated and eternal, neither color nor not color, but pure radiance. Red is Christ's sacrifice, his blood shed for humanity, but also love, passion, the fire of the Holy Spirit. Yet also sin, hell, the devil. Red is complicated, green is life, hope, resurrection, the color of spring, of renewal, of the olive branch, brought by the dove. Black is death, sin, despair, the color of mourning and penitence. White is purity, innocence, the unstained soul. You choose colors not for beauty but for meaning. The wrong color in a religious painting is heresy. You've heard of artists questioned by church authorities for inappropriate color use. A saint painted in the wrong colored robes. A biblical scene with colors that contradict traditional interpretation. This is serious business. This is truth. You finish Mary's robe as the last candle burns low. The blue seems to glow in the flickering light. You sit back exhausted but satisfied. Tomorrow you'll add the gold leaf. The day after, you'll work on the angel's wings. The book has 150 pages, and you've been working on it for 8 months. You have 4 months left if your eyes hold out. You clean your brushes carefully, storing the leftover paint in a tiny sealed pot. Not a drop can be wasted. You say a prayer of thanks for the day's work, for your hands that still function, for your eyes that still see well enough. As you leave the scriptorium, you pass the chapel. Inside, evening prayers are finishing. You join the tail end, kneeling in the back. The staining is permanent. Ultramarine gets into your skin, under your nails, in the creases of your knuckles. You're marked by your work, identified by blue. Like the indigo dyers in China and Japan, though their existence is unknown to you. Like the Egyptian pigment makers dead for 3,000 years, whose hands were also blue. All of you connected by this color across continents and centuries, all trying to capture heaven. 4 months later, the book is complete. Lady Isabella comes to the monastery to receive it. She's dressed in black mourning clothes, though it's been 3 years since her son died. Some griefs don't end. You bring the book to the meeting room. It's bound in leather over wooden boards, clasped with silver. The edges of the pages are gilded. It weighs perhaps 5 pounds. You open it carefully, showing her the first illuminated page. The Annunciation with Mary in her ultramarine robes. Lady Isabella's breath catches. Her hand flies to her mouth. Tears stream down her face. You wait, uncertain. My son, she whispers. He loved blue. When he was small, he would stare at the sky for hours. I would call him, and he would say, she can't finish. She weeps openly now. You stand awkwardly unsure how to comfort a noble woman. She holds the book against her chest like a child. Thank you, she whispers, thank you. After she leaves, the book carefully wrapped, her servants carrying it like the treasure it is, you return to the scriptorium. Your eyes hurt, your hands hurt. You're exhausted in a way that goes deeper than physical tiredness. But you understand, perhaps for the first time, truly understand why you do this work. Transforming grief into beauty, making love visible, creating something that will outlast pain, outlast death, outlast everything except the color itself. You look at your blue-stained hands in the fading light. These hands have captured heaven. Tomorrow there will be more work. There's always more work. But tonight you rest. Your name is Leonardo Vasari, and you're about to challenge everything you've been taught about color. You're not Leonardo da Vinci. He's famous, old, nearly dead, working for the French king. You're just Leonardo, a 22-year-old apprentice in Florence, grinding pigments and learning perspective under Master Andrea Cellini, a painter of moderate success and considerable skill. The workshop smells of linseed oil, turpentine, and ground pigments. That smell is your whole world now. The sharp bite of turpentine cutting through the heavy sweetness of oil, the mineral dust of crushed azurite settling in your lungs. You've been apprenticed here for 7 years, since you were 15. You've learned to stretch canvas, prepare gesso mix, binding media, grind colors, and draw in correct perspective. But today, Master Cellini is teaching something different. Look out the window, he says. Tell me what color the hills are. You look. The hills of Tuscany roll away toward the horizon, covered in olive groves and cypress trees. Green, you say. Brown. The color of earth and trees. Look at the distant hills, Cellini says. The ones on the horizon. You look more carefully. The hills 5 miles away, barely visible in the hazy afternoon light. They're blue, you say, uncertainly. Or grey. They're different from the near hills. Exactly, Cellini says, excited in the way he gets when teaching something he loves. The distant hills are blue-grey, not their true color. The air between us and them changes what we see. This is called atmospheric perspective. He pulls out a painting he's working on, a Madonna, with a landscape background. The foreground is detailed sharp with rich greens and browns, but the mountains in the background are painted in soft blues and greys, hazy and indistinct. The Greeks never understood this, Cellini says. The Romans barely grasped it. But we're learning to paint not just what is, but what appears. Not the truth of the object, but the truth of perception. You're fascinated. You've noticed this phenomenon before, but never thought about it deliberately. Why does this happen, you ask? The air has substance, Cellini explains. Light must travel through it. The farther light travels, the more it scatters. Blue light scatters most, which is why distant objects appear blue-tinted. It's the same reason the sky is blue. The science won't be properly formalized for another 200 years, but the practical application is clear. So we should paint distant things in cooler, lighter colors, you ask. Exactly. And closer things in warmer, darker, more saturated colors. This creates depth without relying only on linear perspective. Linear perspective you know well. The mathematical approach where parallel lines converge to vanishing points. Revolutionary 50 years ago. Now every workshop in Florence uses it. But this atmospheric perspective, this understanding that color itself creates space, this feels new. Cellini shows you more techniques. How colors can be mixed optically by placing small strokes of different colors next to each other rather than blending them on the palette. How shadows are never pure black but contain reflected color from surrounding objects. How flesh tones require understanding of light temperature. Cool light creates warm shadows. Warm light creates cool shadows. I've been reading translated texts, Cellini says quietly. Arab scholars, a man named Ibn al-Haytham wrote about optics 300 years ago. Light behaves in predictable ways. Color is a property of light, not just of objects. This is borderline heretical. The Church teaches that color is inherent in objects, part of their created essence. To suggest that color comes from light, from how our eyes perceive it, that's suggesting reality is subjective, changeable. But Cellini's careful. We don't contradict theology, he says. We just paint what we see. What appears? God created light and vision as well as objects. And we're just observing his creation more carefully. You're grinding azurite later when another revelation hits you. Master, you say, if we can mix pigments to create new colors. Doesn't that mean colors aren't fixed, that they're malleable? Cellini looks up from his sketching. What do you mean? Well, if I mix yellow and blue, I get green, so green isn't fundamental. It's derived. Doesn't that change everything? Your master smiles. Yes. Some colors are primary. They can't be created by mixing. Red, yellow, blue, every other color can be made from these three in theory. In theory. In practice, our pigments are imperfect. Mixing blue and yellow gives you green, yes, but a muddy green, not the pure green of malachite. Our materials limit us, but the principle is sound. This opens infinite possibilities in your mind. If colors can be mixed, if they're not fixed but fluid, then you're not limited to the pigments you can afford or find. You can create. You start experimenting, mixing colors, methodically documenting results. Yellow ochre plus azurite blue gives a dull olive green, or pigment yellow plus ultramarine blue gives a brighter green. Different yellows and blues produce different greens. Red and yellow make orange. Red and blue make purple, though getting a good purple is tricky. It's easier to just use expensive purple pigments if you can afford them. But the principle matters. Colors are relationships. They're created through combination. They're not isolated entities, but parts of a continuous spectrum. The Guild of Painters doesn't entirely approve of this experimentation. There are rules about which pigments to use for which subjects. The Virgin Mary must be painted in ultramarine. Christ's robes should be certain shades. Saints have traditional color associations. To start mixing and matching, creating new colors, experimenting with optical effects, it's seen as potentially disrespectful. Innovation for its own sake. Pride. But you're young and excited and convinced something profound is being discovered. You're commissioned to paint an altarpiece for a small church in the countryside, a nativity scene, traditional subject standard composition. But you want to use the new techniques, atmospheric perspective, color mixing, light from a single source creating unified shadow and highlight. You work on it for 3 months in the workshop. The bristles of your brush drag across canvas, leaving trails of wet pigment that catch the afternoon light. The linseed oil smell fills your lungs. Your fingers are cramped from holding the brush in the same position for hours. Your back aches from hunching over the easel. But the painting is coming alive. You paint the background landscape with careful atmospheric perspective, the hills around Bethlehem receding in blue-gray haze. You paint the light from the Christ child illuminating all the faces around him, creating dramatic chiaroscuro effects. You mix colors to create smooth gradations, modeling forms three-dimensionally. The Virgin's robes are ultramarine as required, but you modulate it with white and shadow, making it feel dimensional rather than flat. You add a greenish tint to the shadows, reflecting light from the landscape. You're proud of it. It's the best work you've ever done. The unveiling is complicated. The church elders gather to see the finished altarpiece. Some are moved to tears by the beauty. Others are suspicious. Why is the background blue? Old Father Tommaso demands. The hills of Judea are not blue. I've been on pilgrimage, I know. You try to explain atmospheric perspective. It's not that the hills are blue, Father. It's that distance makes them appear. Appears, he interrupts. Truth doesn't change based on appearance. A younger priest, Father Giuliano, steps in, but Leonardo has captured how we see. This makes the divine light feel real. The debate continues for an hour. Finally, they decide to accept the work, but with reservations noted in their records. Innovation must be watched carefully. You're simultaneously validated and chastened. Walking home that evening, you think about resistance to new ways of seeing. The Greeks didn't name blue. Medieval painters used flat, symbolic colors. Now you're trying to paint light and atmosphere and optical truth, and even this meets suspicion. What will painters 100 years from now discover that you can't imagine? What ways of seeing color are you blind to? You look at the sunset, the gradations of color from yellow-white sun to orange to red to purple to blue, the way the colors blend seamlessly, the way light transforms everything it touches. You can paint this better now than you could a year ago, but you still can't paint it perfectly. Your pigments are inadequate. Your understanding is incomplete. But you're getting closer. Every generation will get a little closer. You arrive at your small room above a baker's shop. You light a candle and sketch the sunset from memory noting the color transitions, thinking about how to mix pigments to approach those hues. Tomorrow, you'll grind more azurite, you'll experiment with new mixing ratios, you'll try to capture light, you'll fail partially, but you'll fail better than yesterday. And eventually, someone building on your work will succeed. Knowledge grows this way, slowly, through generations of people trying, failing, learning, sharing. You're part of that chain now. You blow out the candle and sleep. Tomorrow there will be more color to discover. Your name is William Hartley. You're 19 years old, and you've just accidentally changed the world. The year is 1856. You're standing in a laboratory at the Royal College of Chemistry in London, staring at a flask containing black sludge. This is supposed to be quinine, the anti-malarial drug that the British Empire desperately needs for its colonies. Instead, it's worthless tar. You're about to clean out the flask and start over when something makes you pause. You're assisting Mr. William Perkin, a brilliant young chemist who's obsessed with synthesizing quinine from coal tar. Everyone says it's impossible, but Perkin thinks the molecular structure might allow it. He's been trying different approaches for months. This particular experiment involved oxidizing aniline, a compound derived from coal tar. The result is this black mess. You add alcohol to dissolve the sludge, intending to clean the flask. The alcohol turns deep purple, beautiful purple, intense, vibrant purple like nothing you've ever seen. "Mr. Perkin," you shout. "Come look at this." Perkin comes over, annoyed at the interruption. Then he sees the purple solution and goes very still. "Test it on fabric," he says quietly. You find a scrap of silk in the supply cabinet. You dip it in the purple solution. The fabric drinks the color eagerly. You rinse it under water. The color doesn't wash out. You hang it to dry. The color doesn't fade. You both stare at it. "We've failed to make quinine," Perkin says slowly. "But I think we've succeeded at something else entirely. You're from a poor family. Your father works in textiles, a dyer whose lungs have been slowly destroyed by the chemicals he works with. His hands shake now. His cough wakes the household at night. He's 43 and looks 60. You've seen the cost of traditional dyeing, the labor, the expense, the health consequences. Natural dyes are difficult. Indigo requires fermentation vats and careful chemistry. Madder root for red requires extensive processing. Cochineal insects must be crushed by the thousands to produce scarlet. Tyrian purple from sea snails costs a fortune, and almost all natural dyes fade eventually. They wash out. They require mordants, metal salts that fix the dye to fabric, which are often toxic. A synthetic dye that's vibrant, permanent, and easy to apply, that could revolutionize everything. Perkin is thinking the same thing. "We need to patent this," he says immediately. "But you're supposed to be researching quinine," you point out, "for the college." "Will they let you patent a side discovery?" Perkin thinks for a moment. "I'll resign from the college. We'll start our own company." You stare at him. "You're 18 years old. I'm 19. We're students. How are we going to start a company?" "My family has some money," Perkin says. "Not much, but enough to lease a building, buy equipment. You know textiles through your father, i.e. chemistry. We can do this." It's insane. It's completely insane. "I'm in," you say. Your father is less enthusiastic. "You're giving up your education to make dye," he says, then dissolves into coughing. "When he recovers, you're throwing away your future. I'm creating my future." You argue, "This is revolutionary. Synthetic dyes could replace all the natural dyes. No more fermentation vats, no more toxic fumes, no more fading. Your father coughs again, wet and rattling. Natural dyes have worked for thousands of years, he says, when he can speak. Why change? Because they're killing you, you burst out. Look at yourself. You can barely breathe. He's silent. This could be better, you say quietly. Safer, cheaper, available to everyone, not just the wealthy. He sighs. Your mother won't approve. I know. She'll think you're being foolish. I know, but if you're certain, I won't stop you. You hug him, careful of his fragile frame. Your fiancée Emma is more supportive. She's a practical woman, a seamstress who understands textiles. Purple is expensive, she says, when you show her the dyed silk. If you can make it cheaply, you'll have every dressmaker in London wanting to buy it. That's what we're hoping. What are you calling it? You and Perkin haven't discussed this. Mauvain, you suggest. From the French mauve, the mallow flower. She wrinkles her nose. Sounds better in French. In English, just mauve. Mauve. Simple, elegant. I like it, you say. The first year is brutal. You and Perkin lease a building in Greenford Green outside London. It's cheap because it's far from the city with nothing around it but fields. Perfect for a factory that's going to produce chemical smells. Scaling up from laboratory to industrial production is harder than either of you anticipated. Chemistry that works in a small flask doesn't necessarily work in 100-gallon vats. Temperatures are harder to control. Stirring is inconsistent. Yields are unpredictable. You hire workers, men from the local area who need jobs. You teach them procedures, safety protocols, quality control. The smell is terrible. Coal tar is foul to begin with. The chemical reactions produce fumes that sting your eyes and burn your throat. You design better ventilation, but it's never enough. Workers get sick. One man develops a persistent rash. Another starts coughing blood and has to quit. You improve safety measures constantly. More ventilation, protective clothing, shorter shifts, better training. You develop a cough yourself. Nothing serious yet, just a persistent tickle. Emma worries. Just one more year, you promise her. Once we're established, I'll hire a manager. I won't need to work in the factory itself. She doesn't look convinced. The product works, though. The mauve dye is everything you hoped. Vibrant, permanent, easy to apply. Textile manufacturers start buying it. Then in 1858, something remarkable happens. Queen Victoria wears a mauve gown to the royal exhibition. Suddenly, mauve is fashionable. Everyone wants it. Mauve mania sweeps through England, then Europe. Every woman who can afford it wants a mauve dress, mauve ribbons, mauve accessories. You can barely keep up with orders. You expand the factory, hire more workers, increase production. The money starts flowing in. By 1860, you're wealthy. Actually wealthy. You've moved from your rented room to a comfortable house. Emma has servants now. You're discussing marriage, a real wedding, not the quiet ceremony you'd planned when you were poor. But the cost nags at you. Workers still get sick, despite improved safety measures. The coal tar is toxic. The aniline is toxic. The byproducts are toxic. You pay for medical care, but that doesn't erase the harm. Your father died last year. His lungs finally gave out. At least he saw your success first. He was proud at the end. And you're not the only one making synthetic dyes anymore. The secret is out. German chemical companies have reverse-engineered your process and created their own aniline dyes. BASF Bayer. Hoaxed. They're bigger, better funded, more organized. By 1862, there are synthetic dyes in every color. Magenta, fuchsine, aniline black, bright greens and yellows and reds that never existed before. The world is becoming more colorful, but there are casualties. The natural dye industries are collapsing. Indigo farmers in India are losing their livelihoods. Thousands of people whose families have grown indigo for generations suddenly can't compete with cheap, synthetic indigo. You read reports about the displacement, the suffering. You try to feel purely happy about your success. You've democratized color, made it available to the middle classes, not just the wealthy, reduced the cost and labor of dyeing, created new industries, new jobs, but you've also destroyed old industries, old ways of life. Progress has casualties. You're having dinner with Emma, your wife now married, for 3 months when she says, "Do you ever regret it?" Regret what? The synthesis. Starting the company. All of it. You think carefully. No, you say, I don't regret it. But I'm not purely proud either. We've changed the world. Some of those changes are good. Some have costs. The Indian indigo farmers, yes. And the workers who get sick and, I don't know, the loss of something. The old ways. Emma takes your hand. The purple is faint now, but still visible in the creases. You made color available to my mother, she says quietly. She has a purple shawl now. My grandmother had grey and brown a whole life. But my mother has purple. That matters, it does. And Emma continues, you're researching safer synthesis methods, better ventilation, worker protections. That counts too. It's not enough. It's something. Progress is messy, always has been. But you're trying to make it less messy. You squeeze her hand. That night you stand at the window of your comfortable house, looking out at the lights of London in the distance. Somewhere in that city, women are wearing mauve dresses, purple that used to be reserved for emperors, now available to shop girls and secretaries. Somewhere in India, indigo farmers are adapting or suffering. You can't undo that. You send donations to relief funds, but you can't undo the fundamental change you've caused. Emma joins you at the window. She's expecting your first child, due in 4 months. What color should we paint the nursery? She asks. You laugh. Anything but purple. Blue, she suggests. Blue sounds perfect. Your child will grow up in a world of infinite color. Synthetic dyes in every shade imaginable. Bright pink and electric blue and neon yellow. Colors that didn't exist when you were born. Is that a better world? Despite the costs, despite the casualties, despite the complexity and the guilt, you think it is. Color should belong to everyone. You've helped make that happen. The future will be more colorful than the past. You are Anna Kellner, and you're learning to see. The year is 1923. You're 21 years old, a student at the Bauhaus school in Weimar, Germany. This scholarship is your escape from poverty, from a father who drinks and a mother who gave up, from a village where girls don't get educated. You're studying under Johannes Itten and Joseph Alber's pioneers of modern color theory. And they're teaching you that everything you thought you knew about color is wrong. Place the gray square against black. Itten instructs, now against white. What do you see? You've done this exercise a dozen times, but it still amazes you. The same gray square looks lighter against black, darker against white. The same color appears different, you say. Exactly. Colors don't exist in isolation, they're relationships. Context is everything. Albers demonstrates simultaneous contrast. He places a small blue square against a larger blue-green background and another identical blue square against a larger blue-violet background. The two blue squares look completely different. One appears greenish, one appears purplish. Same blue, Albers says. Different context. Your eye creates the difference. This is revolutionary. For thousands of years, people treated color as fixed property of objects. The sky is blue, blood is red, gold is gold. But the Bauhaus is teaching that color is perception, relationship, psychology. You're assigned to create color harmonies, not random combinations, but compositions that create specific emotional effects. You work with complementary colors, red and green, blue and orange, yellow and purple. These combinations vibrate when placed next to each other, creating visual tension. You work with analogous colors, blue, blue, green, green. These create calm, harmonious compositions. You experiment with warm colors advancing and cool colors receding. A composition of red shapes on a blue background seems to have depth, the red popping forward, the blue retreating. Understanding how to manipulate emotion with color to create excitement or calm, tension or harmony, energy or peace. This is power. This is language. Your favorite instructor is Wassily Kandinsky, though his theories border on mystical. He assigns specific meanings to colors and shapes. Yellow is a triangle, sharp, energetic, aggressive. Blue is a circle, calm, spiritual, deep. Red is a square, stable, earthy material. You're skeptical of the specifics, but you grasp the broader point color communicates. It speaks to something pre-verbal in human consciousness. The political situation in Germany is deteriorating. Talk of the Nazis, of political repression, of the Bauhaus being too radical, too modern, too degenerate. You ignore it as much as possible. You focus on color. You create a series of compositions exploring the emotional weight of black. In one piece, black is oppressive, threatening, surrounding small, bright shapes. In another, black is elegant, sophisticated, a background that makes colors glow. Same color, different meaning based on context and composition. Color has no inherent meaning, Albers tells you, only assigned meaning, cultural meaning, personal meaning, relational meaning. By 1933, your worst fears come true. The Nazis close the Bauhaus. Degenerate art, they call it. Too modern, too Jewish, too intellectual. Many instructors flee to America. You don't have that option. You're not important enough, not connected enough. You return to your village with your Bauhaus education and no prospects, but you carry the knowledge. You understand how to see color now. Relationships, context, psychology. That knowledge can't be taken from you. Decades pass. The world changes. Knowledge travels in new directions. You are someone else now. Your name is Marcus Washington. It's 1965 and you're a graphic designer in Harlem, New York. You're 28 years old, black, talented and angry. Last month your uncle was beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. Beaten bloody by state troopers for trying to vote, for marching peacefully, for believing America meant what it said about equality. He survived. Many didn't. You channel your anger into design. You're creating a poster for the next march and you're thinking carefully about color. Red, not pretty red, not romantic red, blood red, sacrifice red, urgent red, black, power, identity, defiance, white, included not as purity, but as contrast, as the faces alongside black faces, hands held together. The image shows black and white hands clasped, held high. The colors are bold, uncompromising. The typography is strong, clear, demanding. March for freedom. Your studio partner, David White, Jewish, equally committed, looks over your shoulder. It's strong, he says. Aggressive. It should be you reply. We're not asking nicely anymore. Color is political, it always has been, but now you understand it viscerally in a way you never did before. During slavery, enslaved people were often forbidden bright colors. Dressing in bright colors after emancipation was resistance, celebration, reclamation of joy and beauty. The Black Power movement is reclaiming colors. Red, black, green, the Pan-African colors. Asserting identity, demanding visibility. You think about Anna at the Bauhaus, learning that color is context and relationship, understanding that color is also history and power and protest. Your poster gets picked up by Life magazine. Suddenly, you're the black designer that every progressive organization wants to hire. It's simultaneously an opportunity and a trap. Are they hiring you for your talent or to check a box you navigate carefully? You use the platform to amplify other black artists. You insist on hiring black junior designers. You create work that refuses to soften its message. One night you're working late designing a logo for a new community center in Harlem, thinking about color and meaning. What colors represent hope without being naive, strength without aggression, community without uniformity? You sketch combinations, blue and gold, green and purple, red and black and white. Your grandmother stops by. She lives 3 blocks away, often brings you dinner when you work late. She looks at your sketches. That one, she says, pointing to the blue and gold combination. Why that one? Blue is hope, she says. Sky before dawn, gold is worth, our worth. We're valuable, we matter. She's never studied color theory, but she knows color is universal and cultural, objective and subjective, simple and infinitely complex. You use the blue and gold design. The community center loves it. Years later, it will still be their logo, that blue and gold, carrying hope and worth through decades. Time continues its forward march. Technology transforms everything. You are someone else again. Your name is Yuki Tanaka. The year is 1985 and you're working for Sony in Tokyo, developing one of the first consumer digital cameras. The challenge is translating analog color into digital information. RGB color model combinations of red, green and blue light create all other colors. But digital color looks wrong. Too flat, too bright. Not like film, you're writing algorithms to make digital color feel natural. But natural is culturally specific. Japanese consumers want skin tones warmer. American consumers want cooler. European consumers want more saturation. You're encoding cultural preferences into technology. Your grandmother was a kimono dyer. You grew up helping her, learning indigo dyeing techniques passed down through generations. Now you're creating colors that exist only as electrical signals, pixels on a screen, numbers in a computer's memory. Is this progress or loss? You visit your grandmother. She's 87 now, still dyeing occasionally. You show her a photo on the digital camera. It's a picture of her garden. The indigo plants she still grows. The blue is wrong, she says immediately. You know, the sensor can't quite capture the depth of real indigo. I'm trying to fix it, you say. She touches the screen gently. It's still blue, she says. The method is different, but the intention is the same. You're trying to capture color, to share what you see, but it's not real, you protest. It's just pixels, electrical signals. The cave painters used groundstone and fat, she says. The Egyptians used lapis from mountains. I use plants and fermentation. You use electricity. Color is color. The method doesn't matter if the heart responds. You think about this for days. She's right. Every generation has found new ways to capture color. Cave painters couldn't imagine Egyptian blue. Egyptian pigment makers couldn't imagine synthetic mauve. Your grandmother's generation couldn't imagine digital pixels. But they're all doing the same thing, trying to capture and share color to make the invisible visible, to communicate beauty. You improve your algorithms, you study how human eyes perceive color, how brains process it, how culture shapes interpretation. The camera gets better, the colors more accurate, or at least more satisfying to viewers. You realize you're participating in the 40,000-year conversation about color. Using different tools but asking the same questions. How do we capture this? How do we share what we see? How do we make color permanent? The answers change. The questions remain. Your name is Dr. Sarah Chen. You're a neuroscientist at a research university in California, and you're about to blow apart everything people think they know about seeing color. It's a Tuesday morning, you're in your lab preparing for an fMRI study. Your research question is deceptively simple. Do people who speak different languages literally see colors differently? The answer, it turns out, is yes, absolutely yes. You're studying English speakers and Russian speakers today. In English, we have one word for blue, light blue, dark blue, sky blue, navy blue, but always blue. Russian has two completely separate words, goluboy for light blue and siny for dark blue. Not shades of the same color, different colors entirely. The way English speakers think of blue and green as completely different. Your hypothesis, Russian speakers' brains will show different activation patterns when distinguishing light blue from dark blue compared to English speakers. Your subject today is Dmitry, a Russian immigrant who's been in America for 15 years but still speaks Russian at home. You show him color squares. Some are goluboy, some are siny. You ask him to identify which is which while the fMRI scanner watches his brain activity. The language centers of his brain activate, not just the visual cortex, the language centers. He's not just seeing the colors, he's naming them. And the naming is inseparable from the seeing. You run the same test with English speakers. When they look at the same color squares, they see light blue and dark blue shades of the same color. Their brains process it differently, less language activation, more of a gradient than a category boundary. The implications are staggering. We don't all see the same colors. We literally, measurably, neurologically see what our language has taught us to see. The famous study comes to mind. The Himba tribe in Namibia has multiple words for different shades of green. They can distinguish between green shades that look identical to English speakers, but they have no separate word for blue, and green are the same category to them. When shown a circle of green squares with one blue square, English speakers spot the blue square immediately. Himba speakers struggle. It doesn't look different to them, but show a circle of green squares where one is a slightly different shade of green, and Himba speakers spot it immediately. English speakers struggle. Same wavelengths of light, different perception based on language and culture. You're writing up your findings when your daughter Emma comes into the lab. She's 5 years old, supposed to be at kindergarten, but the school called. She's not feeling well. Emma has deuteranopia, red, green, color blindness. She sees the world differently than you do. You show her the sunset outside the lab window. What colors do you see, you ask? Yellow, she says, and warm, and bright. She doesn't say orange or red because those distinctions don't exist for her. It's beautiful, she adds, and it is. To her, the sunset is just as beautiful as it is to you, just different. This is what your research is really about, not just color vision, but the fundamental question is, your experience of reality the same as mine? The answer is no. Objectively, measurably, no. But that's okay, that's actually profound and wonderful. You're also studying mantis shrimp. They have 16 color receptors, humans have 3. They can see UV light, polarized light colors we can't even imagine. What does the world look like to a mantis shrimp? You'll never know. You're limited by your biology, your 3 types of cone cells, your human brain. There are colors all around you that you're incapable of perceiving. The world is more colorful than you can ever see. That should be frustrating. Instead, you find it humbling and beautiful. Emma tugs your sleeve. Mama, can we go home? Soon, baby. Let me finish this analysis. She climbs into your lap and watches the screen. Brain scans, activation patterns, graphs of color discrimination. What are you studying, she asks. How people see colors differently, like how I see different than you. Exactly like that. She thinks about this. Is my way wrong? No, you say immediately. Your way is just different. Not wrong, never wrong. Okay. She seems satisfied. You hug her tighter. Your colorblind daughter seeing a different world than you, but seeing just as much beauty, just as much meaning. Later that week, you're presenting at a neuroscience conference. You show your data on language and color perception. You explain the cultural construction of color categories. A philosopher in the audience asks, if color perception is constructed by our brains and shaped by our culture, is color even real? You pause. You've thought about this question for years. Color is real because we experience it, you say finally. Shared experience creates reality. Yes, my red might be slightly different from your red. Yes, a Russian speaker categorizes blue differently than I do. Yes, a mantis shrimp sees colors I can't imagine. But we all experience color. We all respond to it. We all find meaning in it. That makes it real. Just not objective, the philosopher presses. Nothing is objective, you reply. All perception is filtered through biology and culture and individual experience. But that doesn't make it less real. It makes it human. The conference ends. You fly home. Emma and your husband pick you up from the airport. Emma is wearing a dress she picked out herself. To you, it's bright purple with yellow flowers. I love your dress, you say. It's my favorite, she says. It's so bright, she probably doesn't see purple the way you do. The yellow flowers probably look different to her. But it's still her favorite dress. It still makes her happy. The color is doing its job, creating joy, meaning, beauty. You drive home under a sunset that looks different to each of you. You see orange and red and purple. Emma sees yellow and warm brightness. Your husband sees it through his own filter. But you all see beauty. You all experience wonder. And that shared experience, that simultaneous, individual yet connected perception of beauty, is what color has always been about. From the cave painters 40,000 years ago to the neuroscientists of today, we've been trying to capture and share color. Not because we all see it the same way, but because we all see it, and we all want to connect through that seeing. The sunset fades, the sky darkens to colors you don't have names for, not quite purple, not quite blue, something in between. Tomorrow you'll return to the lab, more brain scans, more data, more questions about perception and reality and the beautiful complexity of how we see. But tonight you're just watching the sky change colors with your family. You're in the lab late. Emma is asleep in the small rest area you've set up. She's been staying with you more often since the divorce. Your ex-husband wanted custody, but Emma chose you. I want to stay with the science, she said, and your heart broke and soared simultaneously. The brain scans are spread across your monitors, 40,000 data points from 3 years of research, all pointing to the same conclusion. We see what we're taught to see, but we can learn to see differently. You're writing the conclusion of your paper when Emma pads in, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Can't sleep, you ask. Had a dream about colors I can't see, she says. You make space for her on your lap. She's 7 now, getting too big for this, but she still fits. Tell me about it. I dreamed I could see red like you see it, and orange, and it was different. Beautiful in a way I don't have words for. You hug her tighter. You know what's interesting? I've had dreams where I can see like a mantis shrimp, 16 colors instead of 3. And in the dream, it's so beautiful I cry. But when I wake up, I can't remember what those colors look like. My brain can't hold on to something it's never experienced. Do you think I'll ever see red? Emma asks quietly. Not the way I see it, you say, honestly. But Emma, you see things I don't see. You notice patterns and contrasts I miss. Your way of seeing isn't less. It's just different. I know, she says. But sometimes I wonder what I'm missing. Everyone wonders that, every single person, because everyone is missing something. You pull up an image on your screen. It's a simulated view of how a mantis shrimp might see a coral reef. Look at this. This is what we think a mantis shrimp sees. 16 types of color receptors. They can see UV light, polarized light colors we don't have names for because we can't imagine them. Emma stares at the image, mesmerized. We're all colorblind compared to them, you continue. I'm missing just as much as you are, just different things. That makes me feel better, Emma says. You think about everyone who came before, the cave painter grinding red ochre, trying to capture the color of life itself. Kenti in Egypt, creating heaven visible. The Greek poet, wondering why Homer never called the sea blue. The Roman merchant building wealth on purple extracted from dying snails. Mei Lin in China, creating blue from plants through patience and chemistry she couldn't name. Takeshi in Japan, tying 3,000 knots to create beauty through negative space. Brother Domenico grinding lapis worth more than gold, making the eternal visible for a grieving mother. Leonardo Vasari discovering that color creates space, that what appears matters as much as what is. William Hartley accidentally creating synthetic mauve and changing the world forever. Anna Kellner at the Bauhaus learning that color is relationship context, psychology. Marcus Washington using color as protest and power. Yuki Tanaka translating color into pixels and electrical signals. All of them trying to capture color, share color, understand color, all of them succeeding and failing in their own ways. all of them connected across 40,000 years by the simple act of noticing beauty and wanting to preserve it. Mama Emma says, when you finish your research, what will it mean? You think carefully. It means that color isn't what we thought it was. It's not just wavelengths of light or properties of objects. It's how our brains construct reality from incomplete information. It's how culture teaches us to categorize and name and see. But people won't like that, Emma says wisely. They'll want color to be simple. She's right. Your research is going to be controversial. People want objectivity. They want to believe that red is red, that everyone sees the same thing, that reality is fixed and shared. But reality is neither fixed nor fully shared. It's constructed, individual, filtered through biology and language and experience. And yet, here's the thing though, you say to Emma, even though we all see differently, we still respond to color. We still find it beautiful. We still use it to communicate and create meaning. Like how you and I see the sunset differently, but we both think it's pretty. Exactly like that. Emma yawns. I think I can sleep now. You carry her back to the rest area. Tuck her in. She's asleep before you finish covering her with the blanket. You return to your desk. The paper is nearly done. Tomorrow you'll submit it for peer review. It will be published, debated, built upon, refined. Your contribution to the 40,000-year conversation about color. You look at your hands in the computer's blue glow. They're not stained with pigment like those of the painters and dyers who came before you, but they're doing the same work, trying to understand color, trying to share that understanding. You think about the cave painter who never imagined Egyptian blue, the Egyptian who never imagined synthetic mauve, the Victorian chemist who never imagined digital pixels. What colors will humans create or discover in the next 1,000 years? What ways of seeing are we blind to now? The cave painter, the monk, the chemist, the neuroscientist, all asking the same question. Do you see what I see? And the answer is no, but we can try to understand each other's vision. You close your laptop. Tomorrow there will be more work, more questions, more discoveries. But tonight you check on your sleeping daughter one more time, then gather your things to go home. As you leave the building, the sky is that ambiguous color between day and night. Not quite blue, not quite purple, not quite anything you have a perfect name for, but beautiful nonetheless. You smile. 40,000 years of human wonder at color, and it's still beautiful. It will always be beautiful because color is how we share beauty, how we connect across the gap between individual experience and collective meaning. The cave painter wanted someone else to see what they saw. The monk wanted to give heaven to a grieving mother. The chemist wanted everyone to have access to color, not just the wealthy. And you want Emma to know that her way of seeing is valid, beautiful enough. Different paths, same destination. You drive home under a sky full of colors you see and colors you don't. Colors that have names and colors that have never been named. Tomorrow, Emma will wake up and see a different world than you see. And it will be just as beautiful, just as real, just as worth seeing. So that's the story of color, or at least one version of it. There are millions of other stories we could tell. The Maya and their sacred blue, made from indigo and a rare clay used to paint sacrificial offerings and murals that still glow brilliant after 1,000 years. The Aboriginal Australians and their ochre ceremonies, color as law and dreaming and connection to country. The Persian miniaturists grinding lapis into skies so perfect they seem to contain actual light. Every culture has learned to see the world in their own way. Every tradition has discovered and named and understood color differently. The Greeks who couldn't name blue, the Himba who see dozens of greens, the Russians with their two blues, the mantis shrimp with their 16 color receptors seeing a world we can only dream about. And you listening right now, wherever you are, you see colors no one in history saw exactly the same way. Your experience is unique, shaped by your language, your culture, your individual biology, your personal associations and memories. That blue of your phone screen, it's descended from Egyptian blue, made permanent through 40 centuries of refinement. But it exists only as electrical signals, now pixels glowing in the darkness. The red of that book spine on your shelf, maybe it's synthetic aniline dye, maybe it's digital pigment, but it carries the echo of ochre from 40,000 years ago. Colors are time travelers. Every color you see carries history in every wavelength. We're all connected to every person who ever ground a pigment, mixed a dye, painted a wall, tried to capture the color of sunset or sky or the infinite variations of blue. When you finish listening, take a moment. Look at the colors around you. Really see them. Notice how they change in different light, how they interact with each other, how they make you feel. That's what color has always been about. Not the chemistry or the physics or the neuroscience, though those matter. Those are part of the story. But the heart of it is simpler. We notice beauty. We want to share it. We've been trying to share it for 40,000 years in every way we can imagine. From cave paintings to digital screens, from ground stone to synthetic molecules to electrical signals, we keep finding new ways to capture and share color. Because color is how we connect. How we say, look at this, isn't it beautiful, and hope that someone else sees what we see, feels what we feel, shares that moment of wonder. Thank you for traveling through time with me tonight. Thank you for seeing colors with me, for sharing this gentle journey through 40,000 years of human creativity and wonder. I hope this helped you relax. I hope it gave you something beautiful to think about as you drift towards sleep. If you enjoyed this journey through the history of color, I'd be so grateful if you'd hit that like button. It really helps others discover these stories. And if you want more explorations of history, science, and the beautiful mysteries of human culture, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Share this video with someone who might appreciate it. Maybe someone who loves art or history or just needs something peaceful to listen to before bed. These stories are meant to be shared just like color itself. Tell me in the comments what's your favorite color and why. I love reading your thoughts and connecting with you all. Sweet dreams, my friends. May your dreams be as colorful as the history we just explored together. Good night.